Call me Professor Uncomplicator, because I'm going to uncomplicate how to do 16/8 intermittent fasting for beginners. Fasting is not complicated. It's very simple. We make it complicated because we get excited about the science, about the physiology, about the cellular aspects of it. And there's a lot to get excited about. And I myself get overzealous sometimes. So I wanted to create this video to give you a clear, simple guide on how to do the basics of 16/8 fasting while still justifying it with just enough science to get you excited and to be a level up from some of the other very basic stuff that's out there. So we're gonna have some fun with this. Let's go ahead and dive in. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to turn on notifications. All right, so I divided it into two categories: fasting and eating, the two very clear phases of intermittent fasting. 16/8 fasting is where you are fasting for 16 hours and you're eating for 8 hours. It doesn't mean you have to eat the entire 8 hours. It just means that your fasting period is 16 hours. So what I typically recommend you do is start your fast at 7 p.m., of course, the night before your official fasting day. Okay, what this does is it allows your circadian rhythm to align so you get the most out of your fast the next day. It also makes it a little bit easier to get started. I know it's difficult to stop eating at 7 p.m., but it really does align with your sort of metabolic and your environmental clocks, right? You're not supposed to be eating when it's super dark out. It's just not the way it's supposed to be. So you're gonna get better results that way. But then what I want you to do is when you wake up, have some apple cider vinegar. Why are we doing this? Well, you don't have to do it, but apple cider vinegar will kick you into a fasted state a little bit faster. So it's a great way to start the day. It's a great way to kickstart some of the metabolic processes and just get your day going. Okay, there's a lot of reasons, and I have a lot of videos as to why to do this. If you want, you can add a little bit of ginger or a little bit of turmeric or even a little bit of cayenne pepper to some apple cider vinegar along with some water. Super simple, and you don't have to do it. It's just, if you're going to do it, that's the best time. During the morning period, it is absolutely okay if you have some coffee or some tea. However, at this point in the game, it absolutely needs to be black. You cannot put a sweetener in it, and you cannot put some kind of creamer in it. You can possibly put a little bit of stevia or a little bit of monk fruit into black coffee or black tea. That is up to you. There are some arguments out there saying that it affects the fast, but I don't want to overcomplicate it here. Okay, so they are fasting approved. My recommended tea at this time of day is going to be one from Pique Tea. Okay, so Pique Tea Crystals has a few different variations. The one that I would like to have in the morning is called bergamot. It's kind of like Earl Grey. That's what that Earl Grey flavor you get is. So it's just enough energy, gives you that nice little boost, and Pique Tea is just high class stuff. Okay, it's got these really nice crystals that typically break down in a lot of times cold or hot water. So very, very easy. And if you use the code Thomas, you can save 5%, which is something they usually don't do. So Pique Tea is kind of my go-to with fasting as far as like the different kinds of teas. I always kind of mix them up. So anyway, that's just my recommendation there. We'll talk a little bit more as some other things as we go. I want you to do your workout in a fasted state after you have your caffeine, if you choose to do so. Okay, it's okay that you're not going to be eating right after your workout. Okay, that's a myth that you have to do that. Most people think that right after your workout you have to eat. Well, believe it or not, protein synthesis, where your body recovers from a workout, occurs for about 24 hours after your workout. So you don't even have to eat right after your workout. There's some benefits there, but for the most part, if it means breaking your fast early, don't do it. You might as well just get your workout in. And believe it or not, doing some strength training during a fasted state is actually a great way to build muscle, because you actually align some of the hormonal responses to allow your body to get more out of your workout later on in the day. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, now let's talk about post-workout and for the rest of the fasting period. Okay, you've done your workout, maybe you didn't. Either way, approved drinks. What can you drink? Sip on tea, sip on coffee. Believe it or not, the caffeine is what is called, here's a fancy word, a phosphodiesterase inhibitor. This means that it allows your body to accumulate some of the stuff that triggers your body to burn more fat. So caffeine is a fat mobilizer. So that means your tea, your coffee. I usually sip on green tea throughout the day. I usually sip on coffee throughout the day. I don't go overboard. Anyway, Pique Tea also has some great teas there as far as green teas go. If you want to check them out, again, link down below in the description. You can sip on mineral water. Absolutely zero problem whatsoever. There's no calories in that. Herbal tea, even if it has tiny little chunks of fruit in it, I'm not too worried about it. It's such a negligible, fraction of a calorie. Any 0-calorie beverage is technically okay. Now, we could get complicated here, but I'm keeping it simple. This is beginners, okay? Now, you could say that artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose, things like that, will kick you out of a fast because there's something called a cephalic insulin response. I have other videos on that if you want to go down that rabbit hole. But basically, there's an argument that they could spike your insulin and could feasibly kick you out of a fast. I think for all intents and purposes, if you're a beginner to 16/8 fasting, it's probably okay that you have that. I'm not a big fan of artificial sweeteners. I usually lean towards stevia or monk fruit, so get some of those 0-calorie beverages that are maybe sweetened with that instead. Supplements that you might want to consider taking during this period in which you are not eating: magnesium, potassium, sodium, so maybe some electrolytes. I usually recommend like Element, LMNT electrolytes. Creatine. Sounds crazy because you might be thinking, I'm not trying to build muscle, but we're talking 1 or 2 grams, not enough to really have a big muscle building effect. Creatine isn't a muscle building supplement. Creatine is an energy supplement. It creates ATP, which is energy, and it does that in your brain too. So people get a huge brain boost if they take a little bit of creatine, and I recommend it if you are someone that is maybe getting a little bit brain foggy as you're adjusting to this fast, okay? It works really well. Tyrosine also is a precursor to dopamine, so it's going to help you feel a little bit better, help that reward-seeking behavior, so it makes it so you're not craving as much. Definitely not a necessity. None of these you have to take, but I would recommend you balance your electrolytes with some salt in the water at least. Enhancers, and the reason I say this is maybe you've been fasting for a few weeks, you're like, I'm loving this, I want to get more out of this. How do I get more? Well, it's complicated science, and again, I have plenty of videos that break it down if you want to go down that rabbit hole and you've subscribed to this channel, which again, don't forget to subscribe. Turmeric, just in a powder form, has some attributes to it that put you deeper into a fast. So maybe like you're 10 hours into a fast, 12 hours into a fast, and you're like, I want more. I want my body to think that I'm deeper in this fast. A little bit of turmeric, like a half a teaspoon with some water, gonna have a big effect. Same thing with ginger. Ginger powder can do a big thing, okay? Also cayenne. See, cayenne pepper has a thermogenic effect, but it also has some effects as far as the vagus nerve is concerned. Now, what that means is a large part of the fat burning that's happening from fasting isn't just because you're not consuming calories. You see, when you're fasting, your body's kind of shocked. It's kind of like in a fight or flight mode, right? Well, cayenne pepper is going to put you more into that fight or flight mode. That fight or flight mode triggers the body to release energy from the storage form in an effort to give you more energy because it's, as far as it's concerned, thinks you're in a little bit of an emergency. Another one that you could play around with, and this is one that's relatively new to me, so it isn't even in previous videos, a little bit of sage. Sage, thyme, rosemary, oregano have powerful effects on gene expression of what is called PGC1 alpha and also the whole gamut of what is called PPAR alpha. Have I blown your mind with some weird nonsensical science yet? I probably have. In fact, I've probably just bored your mind. So if you want to see more of those videos, don't forget to look at my various fasting playlists that break those down even more. But we're keeping it simple, right? What kind of things are approved, like random ancillary things? Gum. For the sake of a beginner intermittent fasting protocol, I'm okay with you having gum. I am, okay? Granted, it might make you a little hungry. I'm on the fence with it. Mints, usually not. Mints have a little bit more body and volume to them than gum. You're actually ingesting more, so no on the mints. Toothpaste, common question that comes up. My toothpaste has sweetener in it. Is this breaking my fast? Just avoid toothpastes that have xylitol. Xylitol does actually have a little bit of a metabolic effect, okay? So just be careful with that. Doesn't mean you don't brush your teeth. Just what I would recommend is really making a concerted effort to rinse thoroughly and spit and get all that toothpaste out. MCT oil is a common one that comes up. You see, MCT oil is touted in the metabolic community, fasting, keto, because it is highly thermogenic. It does help you burn a little bit more fat. Is it going to break a fast? It really is. So unfortunately, it's not something I would recommend having during your fast, which kind of leads me to like the 5-calorie rule. I grant a little bit of amnesty to anything that has like 5 calories or less, right? A little bit of gum, a little bit of some herbal tea that might have a calorie or two, because I largely think that if you're consuming that, it's not having a significant effect on your fast, and a lot of times there's attributes to these certain things like herbal tea that actually can help you out with your fast. Same kind of thing with ginger, right? You take some ginger in, a couple calories in it, but the mere effect of the ginger on your metabolism actually supersedes the couple calories that are in it. Side effects you might experience when you start fasting, a little bit of hypoglycemia. However, the hypoglycemia that's associated with fasting is largely psychological. They've been done some studies where they've actually seen this, where they've seen that, okay, people are actually fabricating their own hypoglycemia. They're creating it because they are thinking they need food, when in reality they don't. They've done this with some double-blind placebo stuff. It's pretty wild. So don't panic too much. Then sleeplessness is a little bit common. Usually comes because people are pushing their eating period so far back, and they're ending up not eating in the morning and they're eating late at night, and that's disrupting their sleep and their melatonin process within the body. So that can usually be adjusted by just trimming it back and not eating so late. Fatigue as you adjust. And then constipation diarrhea is common just because your digestive system is adjusting. You're getting all these benefits with the migrating motor complex and gut motility. Prior to breaking your fast, here's what I recommend you do. A little bit of cinnamon, okay, because cinnamon is going to lower your cortisol levels. So that way, when you do bring in some food, you're going to have less likelihood of a lipoprotein lipase, an enzyme, triggering that food to get stored as fat. Okay, so what I would usually recommend is either just quarter teaspoon of cinnamon a half an hour before you break your fast, or Pique Tea also has a really delicious cinnamon tea that is caffeine free. So again, that's something you could sip on that tea. So really the whole gamut there. So again, you can use the code Thomas and check them out and get 5% off. And that way you can try the cinnamon tea as well, one of my favorite fasting teas. Bone broth is optional. Bone broth is going to help draw water into your intestinal tract, making it so that you're able to utilize more of the nutrients that you're consuming without potential gut distress. A little bit of salt prior to breaking your fast, 30 minutes prior to help stabilize electrolyte levels before you bring food in. Now we move into the eating period, okay? Things are a little bit different. You break your fast like this. Lean poultry, lean fish, or a plant-based protein shake. And I don't say that because I'm trying to push any kind of plant-based agenda or anything. I'm not saying that. I just don't like whey protein right when you break a fast because it can trigger an inflammatory response. I do consume whey protein sometimes, okay? I'm not opposed to it. I just think in the sake of breaking your fast, it's a little bit better this way. Lean poultry or fish, because they're higher in thiamine, helps you out with the glucose metabolism later on down the line. I don't recommend beef right when you break a fast, and that largely has to do with the fact that saturated fat right when you break a fast is very hard on the system. It can trigger what are called lipopolysaccharides. Those are pathogenic materials within your gut to leach into the bloodstream, triggering a secondary inflammatory response. Much of the benefit we're after with fasting is to modulate inflammation and to control that, to help us with aches and pains, to help us feel clearer, to help us get more out of our mind and out of our lives and out of our families. And when you start getting these lipopolysaccharides and this inflammatory response, you might feel good during your fast, but it makes you feel like a total dog foot the rest of the day, all right? I don't recommend veggies right when you break your fast because it's hard on the gut. I love veggies. Do not put me in a corner and say that I don't like veggies because of this. They're just not in place right here. Avoid excessive salt right when you break a fast. Keep it low carb. Okay, so really it's just lean protein. This is a small meal. This isn't like an actual meal. This is a breaking a fast strategy more than anything. We want to do that so we get the body adapted to consuming a small amount of food, and then we bring the larger amounts of food and the boluses in later. Okay, so if you need a little bit of sugar for whatever reason, try to get it from fructose, like maybe some honey or something like that, because that doesn't trigger an insulin response. We don't want an insulin spike right now. B vitamins are going to help you so you don't feel fatigued later on in the day. I'm a big fan of bee pollen, usually. The one I typically use is a company called Beekeepers Naturals. You can check them out. I'm happy to post a link if anyone wants to see it too. 30 to 90 minutes later after you break your fast, I recommend having a larger meal with more diversity. This is where you can get flexible a little bit. This is where you can have your steak. This is where you can have your ground beef, your fattier cuts of red meat. This is where you can have some more fun with it. I recommend you have soluble fiber with this meal though. Okay, do whatever you can to get some of that. That's going to be things like chia. It's going to be things like flax. Okay, try to get some of that in there, just in one way or another, so that you do get some of what are called short-chain fatty acids. Again, it's so complicated, but basically what it is those fibers break down into components that send signals to our brain to help our metabolism. Higher fat if you're doing keto. If you're keto with this is the meal that you bring lots of the fats in and you just go to town. You enjoy the dark chocolate that's unsweetened. You enjoy the butter. You enjoy the ghee. This is your time. If you're doing a carb diet and you're not keto, this is your time to bring in a multitude of different carbs. This is where I want the bulk of it. 40% of your calories should be coming in with this meal. This is the bigger meal of the day. Okay? Larger meals earlier, air quotes, in the day. I don't want you loading up on too much food later in the day. Okay, so we probably have 20% or so of your calories here, 40% here, so left with 40% the rest of the day. So no real snacking. I want you to kind of continue on with keeping it clean. Lunch and dinner skewed more towards protein, less fat. Even if you're keto, less fat with these meals, more protein, okay? Taper your calories as you go. So if you do 2 more meals after this, you should be tapering your calories less and less as you go, okay? The last meal should be easier to digest. I feel like if you do something Mediterranean style with like a nice fatty fish with a good omega-3 profile, along with some specific herbs, oregano, thyme, also rosemary, sage, these have genetic activators in them to help you get more out of your next fast. Long story. Anyway, high veggie content with this meal. Lots of veggies. We want that butyrate, which is a short chain fatty acid that comes from the veggies, because it's going to kickstart our next fast again. Complicated, I know. Mediterranean is the theme here. Think Mediterranean, look up some Mediterranean diet strategies, look up some Mediterranean recipes. Strict stop at 7 p.m., hopefully even earlier. So I want you to condense your calories so that you're getting them all by then. 40% of your calories earlier, and then condensing them so you're done, okay? You're going to get more benefit if you drop the fast, if you drop the eating around 7 and you have a couple hours before you go to bed. I promise you that is pretty much something I can guarantee you're gonna get better results that way. Some supplements that you can have in the evening time after you've eaten. Coenzyme Q10, which is going to help what is called the electron transport chain. It's going to help you manufacture energy so your body knows how to utilize the food better. I recommend some krill, algal, or calamine oil. This is basically just good fish oil. A good quality fish oil would be okay too. And I want you to do this because it's hard to get enough omega-3s during a fasting day. So get those in. Magnesium, once again, 400 or 500 milligrams. And then also recommend some probiotics because, again, I am a big fan of gut diversity. My recommended probiotic is one called Seed, which I talk about in my videos all the time as well. So anyhow, this is a simple breakdown of how to do intermittent fasting for a beginner. This video is only going to take off with your help. So please, if you know people that want to do intermittent fasting, I highly recommend that you get this video out to your friends and family. Give it a share, put it on Facebook, put it on other places, get it out there. And don't forget to check out Pique Tea down below and check out some of their awesome fasting teas using code Thomas. I will see you tomorrow.